the fuck you're doing. You know what you're doing. You
doing it.
Oh!
I would have said yes, and there's still a lot of reasons I would. She was a single mom. She wrote all the books. She became a billionaire. The reason I would say kind of no now is her just kind of weird anti-trans.
Fucking called it. All right, let's address this right now. So this man, if you can call him that, I'm gonna base it off the fact that he's biologically male. So sos if you're not. So this bloke is shoehorning his projection of what feminism is, and obviously his version of feminism encompasses trans, the same way that the whole LGBTQ plus LMNOP ideology wants to suck up as many things, including ethnic groups and religions. Because he doesn't agree with it, he's going to project what feminism means to him onto feminism. This is the issue with the ideology thing. A lot of people project what they think an ideology is onto someone. This is why I don't like using ideologies as a defense mechanism for what you think. Just have your own opinion. You can't say that J.K. Rowling is not a feminist when she literally is the epitome of feminism in the same industry. You understand? Well, because she doesn't like your gender play issue. Like, grow up. J.K. Rowling believes in biological sex. Hence her perspective on feminism aligns with the more original take on feminism. The second and third wave. The fourth wave is now adopting trans issues into it. Let's carry on from now. So let's look at the articles they're referencing. So CNN is one of them. That's already a black flag, not even a red flag. But just look at how they're worded. They're worded because Jubilee clearly is identitarian left. Okay. J.K. Rowling triples down on transphobia. Transphobia is one of the phobic things. That's all it is. It's a way to like dismiss your ability to actually have an opinion on something because they can just say you have a phobia or something. How can I have a phobia of something that's artificial? Gender is the grammatical equivalent to sex, which is based on biology. People don't understand that. And then people use the argument of intersex. Intersex people still have chromosomes. They are a combination of the two. They don't transition. They are a combination of the two. Biology is either male or female, or a mix of the two. Well, there isn't a G chromosome or an F chromosome. It's either X or Y. It's simple. Rant over. Yeah, you can see how obscure this is. Is this going to be a anti-turf thing? I'm just saying I called it. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go to that. And let me guess, I bet Blue's going to be a turf. Or the black girl's going to be black and yellow, we'll call her. Or she's going to be because she's racial, so she's going to be use her identitarianism in this. That's my assumption.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Zealotry she's gotten involved in that kind of undercuts a lot of her other feminist stuff. It's just she has such a big platform.
What does that have to do about her being a feminist or not? You're not the gatekeeper, little man. Jesus.
Why should women with a platform be forced to align with the mainstream narrative of what it means to be a woman and a feminist? Why can't her own...
I called it. Oh, these two, black and yellow and blue, are going to be on the same page on this one. They're going to be natural allies for this one.
Why can't her own personal journey be enough?
It really comes down to...
Just want to say, I agree. But then she's latched onto the feminist ideology, so kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
It's interesting. See, she's saying that feminism can be different for different people. It sounds like that's what she's implying, which is why does she have to follow the mainstream narrative of feminism? Well, if that's the case, then that means you can be feminist and I can be feminist differently.
There's literally different waves.
There's
literally different waves and segments of feminism for this. But trans bloke over there wants to control what feminism is, and that's the issue that the trans community has been doing. They've been trying to control it. They've been trying to take the leadership role on oppressed people, marginalized people. You know what I mean?
You know my stances on that.
Feel free to voice them. You're the one editing.
Basically, to be quick about it, I'm not anti-trans and I'm not TERF. There's somewhere in the middle that I stand, where I look at trans people like Blair White. And I have no issues whatsoever. And if Blair White had different political opinions, okay, cool. It's the way that Blair White lives her life. and the way that she treats herself and refers to other people respectfully, I look at that and I go, okay, that is a person I have no issues with you living your life. But when I have people screaming at me from both sides of the political spectrum, me as a moderate is just sitting here like, oh my gosh, please leave me alone.
Well, I have a more staunch stance on this one, also as
Yes.
a moderate. Biology is biology, you can't change it. However, if you go through the necessary steps and it's not a quick fix, and you have to be sure you want to do this, as you mentioned Blair White did a video, it will be on the screen right now for you to see, guys. But Blair White did a video with one of the oldest female to male transitioners. One thing that these two people do that I really appreciate is they don't try to force their worldview onto you. It's very libertarian how they do it, and that's why I appreciate that, being a moderate libertarian. But I can suspend my disbelief because it's so believable to understand that they have transitioned in this way to live the life of the opposite gender / sex, that I can actually believe it. Now, I know deep down that Blair White's not, but they understand what transition is. They've actually done it. They've done the biological changes and the cosmetic changes to actually go through it, and they understood the risk, and they went through it because they genuinely wanted to feel this way. You do that, and you do it properly, instead of pretending because of your gender dysphoria issues, which is what, no offense, most people who claim transness are doing nowadays.
Oh, well, no, I completely disagree with you.
What do you mean?
I think people who are actually trans, and I know I'm not a psychologist, I can't determine this myself, but I think there are people who are actually trans. They actually suffer from a gender dysphoria. These people are actually trans. And the people who don't actually suffer from this, but are doing this for either they want to identify differently because they want to be more masculine or more feminine, which has nothing to do with your sex, or they want to for other like self-fulfillment ways.
I think that's where we're confused. What I mean by the gender dysphoria is they don't understand the difference between that and their traits. You understand?
We seem to agree a lot more than I'm wrong. Sorry about that.
No, I think I just articulated incorrectly. But there's a lot of people who think, oh, I like playing with dolls. I must be a woman. Cut my penis off. And then they go 10 years later and then they regret their entire life choices, especially when they're children. And that's another issue. You understand?
You and me, oh yeah. You and me are actually a very special example of that. Do I have the right to talk about this? About our childhoods?
Go ahead.
I was very girly as a young girl. I liked princess dresses and I liked big poofy things. The poofier the better. My favorite color was pink and I liked green as like a compliment. I loved roses and flowers. But then at one point in my life, I hit a wall and I was very like boyish. Like I was kind of boyish before because I've always liked things like dinosaurs.
It's called being a tomboy.
I was very tomboyish. I liked video games. I liked sports. I liked action. Well, yeah, I still do. But I was very masculine about it too. Like the way I walked and talked, I was very competitive, very aggressive.
I feel like you did that more as a defense mechanism because you wanted to feel safe, though. But that's more my upbringing. Yeah, but I know you wanted to come to me. I'll do it myself. I used to call myself Josephine, and I used to put like towels on my head, and I used to go around saying, "Don't call me Joseph, call me Josephine." And I used to do that. Yeah. And then I went onto my PlayStation, and I used to play bloody like tactical shooter like simulators, and then I'd start rolling around, pretending to hold a gun, like sneaking around, like I'm some special forces SAS agent. But that's the thing. I would be labeled, I should say, trans by these activists, because that's what they are, and they'd gaslight me to think that I must be trans and I must take all these surgeries and all these chemicals to make me transition, these puberty blockers, only to find out I'm actually really very masculine. I just embrace elements of femininity, like empathy, and I like long hair. I like long hair, even though I have pretty short hair. But you see me in person, you know how masculine I am in comparison to most men nowadays. But I've embraced.
I would say more.
Yeah, but I've embraced elements of femininity because I choose to. That doesn't make me trans. So the issue I was talking about before, so many people with the gender dysphoria issue conflate the traits of masculinity and femininity with their biology. Being masculine doesn't mean you have to be male. Being feminist doesn't mean you have to be female. You can have traits of these different things and still embrace who you are. You don't need to then take puberty blockers and change yourself on such a level. You don't need to then force people at fear of having their livelihoods taken away from them because they are labelled the phobic.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's it. Just be you. And you don't need a category or demographic to define you on that level. I think this trans thing needs to be an end point. If you're going to be trans, you need to go through everything. You need to figure these things out. You can't just call yourself trans because you feel like a tomboy or tom girl. I was a tom girl.
Yeah, the people who I think are genuinely trans are people who actually genuinely feel this way. And it's not for any social reason, it's not a cultural reason, it's an actual, I psychologically have this disorder. And the way I want to treat my disorder is by just living a life that makes me feel more comfortable.
So why can't people just understand, alright, I am a biological male, so I'm a man, but I want to wear a dress? I think that's the issue. How we solve this trans issue, because again, I guess because me and you are both coming from the moderate perspective on this, we're able to see things clearly, but how we solve this is we stop making what's between your legs such a huge point of contention. The same way we stop making race a huge point of contention. The conflation, the issue, is they're conflating the gender with the traits. That's the issue. How do we get people to see that that is not how it's meant to be? How do we get people to actually understand that how you solve this issue is understand that being male means you're a man, and you can still be feminine.
How about this? In dance, because I dance, as you know. In dance, there's something called a lead and there's something called a follow. Men can be leads, men can be follows, and there are times when follows and times when leads do more masculine, more feminine things. For example, if you do something like the foxtrot, leads and follows walk forward and back and take control at different points. It's a very masculine and feminine role that switches back and forth. But that doesn't mean that the lead suddenly is a female or is suddenly weak or incapable or feminine because they're backing up. If the follow decides to take lead, they're not suddenly a man either. They're just doing something that is a little bit more leading. They also don't change roles in dance. If you are a lead, you are a lead for the entire dance. It's kind of like that. It's, in a sense, a lot more complicated and nuanced, but at the same time, a lot more simple. You just are what you are, and you act as you act.
That's how it should be. Just be you. You doesn't mean you have to change your demographic to fit into a certain society. I hate how much has been put on this because people are ruining their lives based on this shit.
They can align, like yours obviously all align. Like you pointed over here, you're like, all the men over here. The first 30 years of my life, I was a woman. It's a disconnect with what you're born as and what you feel you should be.
So gender dysphoria.
Yes.
I 100% could believe that, yeah.
If it was just like, I just wanted to be a masculine woman, then sure, that's easy to do.
That explains so fucking much. This is, you know what? This is someone who successfully transitioned.
Congratulations for, unquote, passing. But at the same time, you are a sufferer of gender dysphoria. The same way someone with basic body dysphoria or muscle dysphoria, you would never look at them and go, oh, you are exactly as you see yourself to be. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I have a mental health condition. Here is how I want to live my life.
How many people want to say that? It's very demeaning to people to do that. That's the issue.
Ironically, all the same people who insist that mental health is important and we should care
I know. And it's kind of hilarious when that happens, but it's just like, who in their right mind, yeah, I'm sure they would love other people to be suffering, but people will feel like shit when they're going through it. He wants to admit that they're going through some shit.
I'll admit it.
Well, I know, you wouldn't admit it to fucking Bob at the bus stop. You admit it to someone who you trust and know, and you know when to take advantage of that.
Hey, Bob at the bus stop, sit down, I must tell you my life story.
You know, this person's he didn't start with that. He didn't start with exposing that he was originally, and still is, biologically female, and just successfully transitioned. Right? He didn't say that. I'm going to call him he because I believe him to be a he under that. Because he transitioned. Okay. He's a trans male, not a male. He's a trans man. Okay. He's not a man, he's a woman. But he's a trans man. And I'll call him he based upon that.
I'm not going to say I'm male. I wasn't born with XY. That'll never change. And no trans person will ever tell you they're biologically born that way, because if anyone knows anything about biology, it's trans people. That's why they have to get hormones and do all this other stuff.
So understand why we call you trans woman and trans man.
It's funny because I've actually heard a lot of trans people say exactly that. I am biologically a woman.
Yeah,
even
me
though
too.
my
Yeah, me.
chromosomes
Yeah.
are different.
No, yeah, I know. Me too.
Personally, I'm not entirely sure on my entire views for all of this, but I don't get it.
I do, and like I said, you just understand it is what it is. I get it. Sometimes it's sad, but make the best of the situation you got. There's always gonna be a situation where you wish you were something. You can't change biology. Do you know what you can change? Who you are as an individual. Why don't you work on that? Work on your personality traits. Work on becoming a better person, becoming more well-rounded. Learn some new skills. Do the things you can change. That's the issue. People are so superficial. Bring it back to the Kim Kardashian thing now. People are so fucking superficial now that they don't try to work on themselves. They try to work on how they are viewed.
I think we just need to stop caring about that.
Yeah.
You want to wear makeups and dresses? Sure. You want to be a very feminine or very masculine person? Sure. Like,
Do it
I
for
don't
healthy
care.
reasons.
Have fun.
Yeah, do it for healthy
Gladly.
reasons. If you're gonna do it for unhealthy reasons, own your shit. Don't try to gaslight me and say that I'm talking misinformation when you're the one who's actually not well-rounded and understanding what you're talking about.